was in Port-au-Prince and driving to her village, and they put her in my arms, and she was 2.5 years old and 19 pounds, teeny tiny, really, really sick.
I will hold you when you're breaking, like a father and a friend, and I will carry you through darkness till we see the sun again.
You're going to hear the story of that little girl and the woman who adopted her on this episode of GPS, God, People, Stories. I'm Jim Kirkland.
And I'm Phil Fleischman. The woman who adopted that tiny little 2-year-old girl is Lisa Harper. You might recognize her name. She's a well-known Christian speaker. She lives in Nashville, but she recently stopped by our studios. And our colleague, Carol Davis, spent some time talking with her. And Carol, you and Lisa covered some serious ground in your conversation, but as we're all going to hear at times, you also had some laughs, too.
Absolutely. Lisa's just real. She's down to earth. She tells her story. She's open about her struggles. She didn't try to portray a perfect life. And she was also very passionate about her relationship with God and how that had seen her through even the most difficult days.
GPS.
God,
People, Stories.
Lisa Harper is a Bible teacher, a sought-after speaker, a best-selling author, and a comedian. At this point, you may be asking yourself, what does she do with all that spare time? Well, she's also a single mom.
I'll never forget it. Went to a women's conference and they started talking about adoption. And I had committed with my best friend when I was 17 years old in a Bible study. And the theme was adoption throughout Scripture, how there's this theme in the gospel of us being adopted by God. We had committed as 17-year-old kids, just wet behind the ears, more enthusiasm than depth. But we committed that we would both adopt when we got older, and Cindy went on to adopt. She and her husband struggled with infertility. They adopted. Well, I never married. So I thought, well, that was kind of maybe a kid's pipe dream.
But because of what she heard at that women's conference, she began to think that maybe the idea of adopting a child was more than just a pipe dream. She was in her 40s at the time.
Obviously, best case scenario, the biblical template is to have a mama and a daddy. But there's 147 million orphans in the world, and many of them in third world countries will die of very preventable things like malaria if they're not adopted by somebody in a first world country. And I thought, well, for those kids, when the option is either death or to be adopted by a fluffy single mom in Nashville, Tennessee, I thought maybe God would allow that. So I just kind of slowly started the process of letting some adoption agencies know if you've got a kid who doesn't have a shot at a mama and a daddy, I'd love that child.
From that point, there were a lot of ups and downs over the next couple of years.
And then some friends from Haiti called and they said, we've got a little girl whose mama died of AIDS and she has HIV and she's very, very sick. She has cholera, she has tuberculosis. And the doctors have told us she only has 2 to 3 months to live unless really anybody steps in the gap for her. And they said, would you pray about it? And I said, nope. I said, I've been praying about this for 30 years. Sign me up. And then I got off the phone and was like, what have I done? Good night. I'm not sure I know how to do this. But of course, the sweetest thing about God's will is, it's one step at a time. You just follow where he leads.
So 6 weeks later, Lisa was in Port-au-Prince, meeting the girl who would eventually become her daughter.
And they put her in my arms, and she was 2.5 years old and 19 pounds, teeny tiny, really, really sick. But she looked up at me. She didn't like me at all at first. She thought I was just this big, pale, scary-looking woman. But she looked up at me kind of suspiciously, and then she wrapped this surprisingly strong little hand around my pinky finger, and she said, "Hello, Mama Blanc." That's hello, white mama. And I was like, stick a fork in me, I'm done.
Where would I be without you? Where would I be without you? Where would I be without you?
It would be 2 more years, though, before Lisa could bring her daughter home.
It's just been an unbelievably tangible example of God's kindness. Her HIV is undetectable. Her lungs are healthy as can be, no sign of tuberculosis. And she's a trip. She is, other than my salvation, she is the sweetest gift of my life. definitely gives me a run for my money, Gail.
That's what they're for.
That's right. That's right. I'm like, she's either going to keep me young or put me in the grave. I'm flat worn out half the time.
Lisa describes the 2 years that it took for the adoption process to be finalized as rough.
I think anytime we have to wait, I just don't think it's in the human DNA. We tend to be stinkers and prideful and not patient. And it was a long wait. I think what was especially hard is she was sick that whole time. And, I'm in Tennessee. I went to Haiti relatively often. I went down there 5 or 6 times during the process, but still your hands are kind of tied. So I did everything I could to make sure she was, getting proper nutrition and hopefully getting medication for the HIV. But you just have no control. So a lot of it is, Lord, I'm just gonna trust you. I'm gonna trust that you are leading her and you are her rear guard, even though she's this precious little Haitian orphan and 4 years old. I'm gonna trust you. Have protected my kid, but. It was, there were times that the, weeks would seem to stretch into years. It just was a long, long time. And then when I would go visit her and have to leave her there and come home and she would cry and say, "No, Mama, no." I felt like I left big chunks of my heart in Haiti or on the tarmac in Miami.
Nothing can separate us from your life. Oh, your love, it will always be.
Those goodbyes and separations are only memories now. Lisa was able to bring Missy home in April of 2014. And while the wait seemed forever when she was in it, looking back, Lisa says those chapters of their life have now kind of become compressed.
For those women who are still waiting for an adoption to come through, and for those who are pretty sure that door is closed, Lisa has some advice and some humor.
Missy is such a gift, but I brought her home, the year I turned 50. I didn't plan on going through menopause and motherhood at the same time. That was just a little double portion of God's blessing. But, it was a long, long time. And for a lot of my friends, their paths have not included motherhood. And some didn't feel called to it, and there is an ache that will not be filled until glory. And that's where I just encourage them, don't try to numb your pain or run from your pain. I made a very intentional choice when I was in my 40s. I would rather my heart be hurt than hard. And so I'm going to press into my friends who have children, because let me tell you, every mama around you is always looking for a break. And I'm going to say, hey, when you'd like somebody to take your kids to McDonald's, or you want to go get a massage and you want somebody to stay home with your kids, I'd love to be an aunt. Because I thought, Lord, I don't know if I'll ever get to be a mom, but I really want to be tenderhearted around children. And I want to have a mother's heart.
And her work in women's ministry has given Lisa a lot of opportunities to do just that, to offer a mother's heart.
Now that I am as old as I am, I still get to be with a lot of young women in their, teens and 20s. So age-wise, I could be their mama. And I started just developing this real mother's heart toward kids in high school and college. And of course, I didn't share a whole lot of stuff with my mom when I was a teenager in my 20s. It took me until about 35 for me to realize she was brilliant and everything she ever said to me was true. But sometimes you can hear a mother figure's voice and counsel and wisdom more than you can even your own biological or adopted mama. And so I thought, I am just going to be the mom God wanted me to be, even if I don't have my own son or daughter. And that started turning things around for me. For years, I tried to numb my heart and guard my heart, not in a biblical way, but protect my heart instead of trusting that God would protect my heart. And sometimes when He protects our heart,